Well, let me interrupt you to say we have the man, the myth, the legend himself, Jonathan Tisdall, online. Jonathan,
Hi.
good to
Thanks for that
see
introduction.
you.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
Your glasses look like they're a little thicker since the last time we saw each other. How are
Yeah,
you doing?
the true, both the frames and the glass. Yep.
Nice.
I'm fine. I'm glad to finally get through to you and just before the event ends.
Right. Jonathan, we got to ask you the question directly because we've been talking about it now. Normally speaking, the candidates, it's a winner-take-all tournament. There's one challenger. That player goes on to play the world champion. Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? But we've been making noises that the top
Let me
two
guess, there's a
finishers.
Norwegian angle to this question, is there?
Yeah, well, what's the current state of Magnus's? How has Magnus addressed the issue of the World Championship match?
I don't think I know anything that you don't already know. This started, I think, more or less because I had an interview with Magnus just before his match in Dubai with Nepo.
Right.
And he dropped this really strong hint that it was going to be his last match. And when I tried to press him on it, he said, "Ask me after the match." And I haven't had a chance to ask him, but he has spoken to podcasts and people in the media here who he's very friendly with. His guys. His old friends and this sporting podcast and stuff. And his statements have not been crystal clear yet, but they've become increasingly stronger, that you have to take him seriously when he says he is not, he's less pleased than ever to play a title match, is how I'd say it.
Wow, and you've known Magnus basically since he was a little boy, and you take his comments very seriously because he's not the one to pull punches. He tells you exactly the way he feels.
Yeah, exactly. Magnus, yeah, I mean, it's quite the opposite, in fact. You ask Magnus a tricky question, and he will give you a horrifyingly direct and
Nice.
thorough summary of his opinion. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't pull punches, and he not only says what he means. If he says he's going to do something, he follows through. That's why you have to take it this seriously. But the biggest positive so far is that he hasn't said 100% he won't do it. If he says that, I'd be astonished if he does play. But he's kept this open, and he's always had this attitude. I mean, it's easy to forget now that when he was, the heir apparent in the early 2010s, if that's what you call it, he was so against the
cycle,
the whole title cycle, that he dropped out of it.
Right.
And he has, said he doesn't like defending it, and he doesn't like it defining him. I think that's maybe the most eloquent way he's put his relationship with the title.
What do you think would be his ideal format? Just play everybody from the beginning? Just equal field?
He does like the idea of no advantages to the champion. I mean, he's not trying. His attitude towards the title isn't protective at all. Yeah, he has said many times he'd like some sort of completely open system. I suppose closer to this World Cup kind of thing than what we have now. But I mean, he's also been very clear, and he's very fond of a rapid-based event. I think the current way his Magnus Tour is set up, I think, is a bit like his dream version of how to run a championship event. And I think he sort of sees engines forcing people to play so quickly that it's, at some point, what we call classical chess will be pretty fast. Nothing like what Yasser and I used to play back in the day.
Right? But if, for example, these meltwater championship events where they really are open and they're fast-paced, Jonathan, I got to tell you, I mean, the Norwegian television ratings have been spectacularly good.
Nice.
It wouldn't be the worst thing that ever happened to chess.
No, it reminds me a bit of an interesting thing Greg Shahade said on Twitter a couple of years ago. And it was one of these things where when he said it, it was clearly a divisive thing to say. And I agreed with him 100% and disagreed with him 100% at the same time. So it was very memorable. But what he said was something about to the effect that if we started running chess events now, no one would ever dream of making them classical. They'd all be rapid.
Right.
And so that there's a sense that we're carrying this, historical burden that games have to last. Okay, now they can only last all day instead of several days, like they did when we were young, yes.
Right.
But basically, everything's going faster, and we see the necessity with the engines to speed things up as well. And it's really hard for me to argue against that if we were starting from scratch today, we'd think, oh yeah, it's a bit like the problem cricket has.
Mm-hmm.
You can either play for 5 days or you can play rapid. Yeah. So I think it's very easy to understand how you can see the game becoming
Faster.
classical, rapid blitz, and so on.
Alejandra, jump in with a question for our good friend Jonathan Tisdall, if you please.
Well, first of all, great to see you. I was one of the few people that was actually awake for breakfast in Dubai. So very good breakfast company was Jonathan. He was regaling me with all his stories. Guys, I have to agree with the conversation. It's something that I've been saying for years. Since I started doing broadcasts for the St. Louis Chess Club, I've thought the game needs to speed up. We have candidates that are regressing. The World Championship, to me, this time control is a regression. It goes to our traditional system, to what we're used to. But every single new tournament is going faster.
Yes. I'd say two things to that. We still supposedly see the need for a classical title. So presumably it's got to have slower classical rules. One thing that I do think is really positive about the last match through and the candidates is that we brought back good old-fashioned time control of no increments before the game's actually ending, which was the original idea. And it's not just because I like to see people in the same kind of time pressure that was normal when Yaz and I were kids, real time pressure. It adds that element of error creation and excitement that we've been trying to achieve by just speeding the game up. Mm-hmm. And, you get all of your time at the beginning. So you could actually have more time for the game. It's, up to you to invest it properly. So I think this is a really great way of sort of compromising while we're working things out, that people have real-time pressure. You're going to have a higher error level, which is what I suppose people want. Yeah, you want to increase the human factor, right, and reduce the engine factor. The problem for me with that is I can't see it lasting as a solution for very long, because every time you speed the game up, your classical lovers are going to go, people can't play really great games at this speed. Right. And then they do. And you speed it up, and then they do. Nice. So I assume that it'll take a couple of months before everybody knows how to invest their time properly. You won't get so many time controls, and we'll be in the more or less the same place. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I think we're going to see it faster and faster.
I'm all for having, revising the specific rules every 7 to 10 years. Just, come back to it, make sure it's still relevant to the player, to the world champion, to, the game. Because I do feel like after pandemic, chess has changed quite a lot. Yes, but I do have another question for you. I see that, as an author and as such an amazing chess player, and I also see your beautiful bookshelves behind you. So I have to ask, what are your top 3 favorite chess books? Must read, anybody, everybody. If you don't read it, you got to quit the game.
Oh, that's really tricky, because I of course, I'll try and give you a weird answer.
Well, I gave you 3. I was going to go for a top choice, but
How many books did you write, Jonathan?
Well, one of it has to be
Right,
the
right.
Yasser one.
I can't really answer. I can tell you one of the books that I've always recommended. I don't think anybody's read,
That's fair.
and I won't even be able to remember the name now. But Mihai Shuba's book on dynamic chess thinking, dynamic.
Dynamic-
All I know is
I think
do
it
you know
might
the
be
book?
just be Dynamic Chess by Michael
It might be
Schuba.
dynamic chess. Yeah. It's one of the few books that I've found incredibly inspiring and showing me chess from a different angle, and also literally laughing out loud constantly throughout it. It's full of fantastic stories. Personally, I wish I'd read Jonathan Rowson when I was young, but unfortunately, Jonathan Rowson
The
wasn't
Deadly
born.
Sins?
Is it?
Seven Deadly
There's one
Sins.
that I'm.
Or Chess for Zebras, The Deadly
I
Sins?
think it's Zebras. Zebras is my favorite, I think,
Okay.
because it goes most deeply into very normal problems with chess psychology
Okay.
and mental attitudes and ways you can mislead yourself and all sorts of really deep topics that nobody tends to teach you or you tend to think of yourself. I mean, to me, it was personally, I think I found it one of the most instructive things I ever read. And I immediately thought, geez, if he'd only been born before me, things might have been different.
But dude, I want to slap you. How come you didn't immediately say Michael Tall's 1960 World Championship match book?
That's
it's just like, holy smokes, that's just
I can
unbelievable.
if I can find it on my bookshelf, it's falling apart. To bits. It's fantastic. There are so many. There were
Yeah.
so many. Yeah.
So
And then, of course, there's the one we did together, Jas.
yeah, well, thank you. I wanted to. I was leading you to the water. There, you weren't drinking.
I hear that's quite a find on the eBay or whatever it is.
Repeat back to you, you're recommending Schuba's Dynamic Chess, any kind of stuff by Jonathan Rowson. Really, you like a great deal. Okay, those are. I mean, I think those are very, very good choices. By the way, you wrote also. I think. What is this? Play Better Chess Now? Which book?
Improve Your Chess Now. Very catchy title, misleading title. Yeah.
I thought it was a great book. I mean, did you get any royalties?
It's still ticking in, actually.
Sweet.
Yeah, no. I mean, people tell me it's some kind of a classic. I mean,
I loved it. I thought it was a great book. I like Jeremy Silman too, by the way. I like authors. I like Bronstein. I like John Nunn. I think they're brilliant authors. I like Larry Christensen, our old colleague.
I mean, we have to mention him. I like John Watson.
And John Watson.
I think he did a great job with this chess strategy book that he has. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Yeah.
But it was pretty
Modern
influential.
chess strategies, maybe? Modern?
I think it's Modern Chess Strategy.
Yeah.
And Dvoretsky, anyone?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Everything
but
Bible.
that's a little too obvious. The other thing is, right now, I'm really fascinated with what Matthew Sadler's doing.
Okay.
Really fascinated by being our translator and guide to the Overlord world. So I think his books are really fascinating.
Right.
And there's a guy, and this is another unfortunate thing because I mean, I'm not an active player anymore. So when I do read a book, I don't tend to pay so much attention. But there's a new guy around. I don't have it here. It starts with a K, and he's written a book finally. But he tends to write about topics that I've always thought should be written about.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. He went to college with me. Davorin Kuljasevic.
Yes, that's the guy. Hey, you got it on very
What was the clue? What the heck was that? That came out of nowhere. What were your roommates? Get out of here.
I mean, that's when you know you're a chess player, right? Like, oh, starts with a K, interesting subject. That was good enough for me. I just read his book.
You guys ought to have an act together.
books. I've been really impressed with those. I thought tremendous work on long neglected subjects.
I absolutely agree. I think
Nice.
yeah, he did a really good job on both of those books. Highly recommended.
Well, Jonathan, you're joining the discussion late. The player who never became world champion that you think, oh my God, the history of the world would be completely different if X had become world champion.
I didn't realize you were going to get surprise questions.
Welcome to the show.
Well, you just surprised us with that author. It was from our social media. Our audience wants to know. We have a very discerning audience, by the way.
So I suppose I have to go back in time and sort of tick off all the great, all the obvious candidates.
You only get one, sir. Take.
I'll pick one for you. I'll pick one especially for your audience. It would have been. It's hard to. Yeah, he might have changed the time space-time continuum of chess. How about Hikaru?
Oh.
Ooh. There we go.
You took us aback there with that one.
I like that answer.
Wow. Turning our attention.
We're already thinking about how the world's changed, right?
Yeah. Turning our attention to the topic of today, which is the 2022 candidates. What has surprised you the most about the tournament? Your predictions that have been unexpected, the play, you tell us.
Okay. I went on record just before the event saying I had no idea whatsoever about what would happen. I could see anything happening, and I'd want 2 rounds to give anything resembling a prediction. After 2 rounds, I said I would have safe, boring money if I was going to put it down on the event. And I thought Fabi was the favorite.
Right.
After seeing him warm up.
Right.
At the halfway point, I still thought Fabi, even though he was behind, because I thought he looked like he was in pretty close to vintage Fabi form. I mean, in terms of
he looked
being
pretty darn
methodical
good.
And unflappable. And I also thought he looked like he was in the best physical condition, which I thought was going to be a very key factor.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I will confess that was what became my strong opinion as soon as, or as late as I formed one. I don't know why it took me so long to think that the 2 guys who'd done it before would actually be the favorites.
It wasn't intuitively obvious at the time.
No,
right?
and I certainly wasn't alone in that. There were a lot of distractions. You got young guys, and always you think you want the romantic angle. One of the young guys, might do something terrific. Ding's got good numbers. I think Ding's been terribly handicapped, actually.
By what?
Because,
Like.
by a sort of lack of logistical support, maybe. I mean, he turned up late. He's been inactive. He doesn't have a second, does he?
Not that
He
we're
has a second,
aware
but not with him. His team is back in China.
Okay, but who is it? Do you know?
No, they didn't reveal. They just said that he has.
Okay. Yeah, but it would be very strange if he didn't have links to anybody or anybody helping him. But still, it's a very long event.
Right.
So I feel a bit sorry for him in that respect. And I think we're seeing now him warm up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me if he finishes.
Oh, the yesterday game
second.
was
Very,
wonderful.
very strong. Jonathan, we want to thank you so much for taking time out and joining us. It's first of all, it's a great, great pleasure to see you. Remember 1976, Memphis, Tennessee? Those were the days, huh?
I remember them well.
You
And
called me Curly.
Still do.
I don't call you Curly anymore.
But I must say, it was also nice to see my breakfast chum from Dubai and his incredible psychic ability to know what I'm talking about.
It's a connection. It's just a connection that we built up over that breakfast buffet.
Jonathan, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you, my friend.
Yes, always, yes. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Wonderful man.
Wow.
Wonderful man. Jonathan
one thing
Tisdall,
that's
everybody.
probably